Welcome to another exciting episode of Humanity 8.0, a podcast where we talk about movements and initiatives that seek to move humanity to its next epochal iteration. This podcast is brought to you by Witlingo. When it comes to managing a community, one of the keys to success is the ability to effectively communicate with the members of that community. If you are a service coordinator or responsible for community engagement, Witlingo provides a multi-channel, multilingual notification and engagement platform to help you work more efficiently and effectively. For more information, please visit www.witlingo.com. That's www.witlingo.com. And now, here's your host, Dr. Ahmed Bouzid.
Bentley Hensel, welcome to Humanity 8.0.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You're a busy man. We were just talking about your Saturday, a very busy Saturday, but like you were saying, once in a while, you have to carve out some time for you as a human being, as opposed to as a candidate, because as a candidate, between your job and your candidate, your life is taken up doing things for other folks or on behalf of other folks.
Yep. Yes. Yeah.
So I do appreciate you taking a slice of the special day, Saturday, to speak with me. So as I was saying before we started, the context of this conversation is democracy, right? You are running for the seat that Don Bear in the 8th District of Virginia, I believe, as an independent for this election. Today is September. Is it 14th? Yeah, 2024. So we have about almost 2 months or more, almost 2 months, right? Till November 2024 for the elections, right? So, and I want to talk to you because you are in the thick of the battle, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right? And you're seeing the challenges firsthand. So, before we start, let's tell me a little bit about before we talk about you and your candidacy. Let's talk about the district itself. It's not your typical district, is it?
No, Virginia's 8th is everyone says, oh, every congressional district is different. Yes, but this one is completely different. We're like in DC, we're like of DC, but not in DC. We've got, this district that has the Pentagon. Where the unemployment is like roughly it's around 2.5%, and our economy is more or less isolated from the rest of the country. I think that really became very prominent with the recent stadium around DCA issue, where it's I grew up in Alexandria, Louisiana, and they would have done whatever to get a stadium like that. That would have changed everything. And here we're like, we really don't need any more. We're good. Like when Amazon came out, we were excited, but was like, do we really need another Fortune 5? And I'm not saying the economy isn't important, but I think it really has allowed people in this district, and because everyone's sort of also politically involved, or at least connected in some way to the government, it's really allowed, I think, this district to have, at least hopefully, have some conversations about topics that necessarily don't super impact. We have 11 farms. When I was looking at for the Virginia Farm Bureau for my response to the questionnaire, there are 11 farms in this.
11 farms, okay.
11, like less than 20 acres of under production in agriculture. Not saying it, but again, compared to where I'm from, it was like I grew up across the street from they had cotton in most of the year and cows in the winter. Very different type of area, and but yeah, it's a fascinating area, and this also, I love the fact that everyone here has something kind of going on, and it's nice to really well-educated area, and it's nice to be able to have conversations with people that I think that you wouldn't really in other parts of the country.
Yeah. So I was looking up the stats. About 800,000, just a little bit in terms of population.
854
850 something.
Yeah, 800K.
Around 800, 900,000, right? I saw that the median income is 130, and then I was looking at the national, which is $74,000, and I was looking at the 7th district, which is $83,000. So it's it's an outlier, like you're saying. And you have the Pentagon, you were saying, is here, DEA is here. Didn't know this. I live in this district, I didn't know these things. Obviously, HQ, Amazon HQ is here. What else? Raytheon, Lockheed
Right.
Martin, Accenture, they're all here.
Intelsat, I mean, let's not forget the Pentagon. That's the big,
Pentagon, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
they got some money. And
They don't know what to do with it.
we got it's Intel. There's so many different companies, and so and then even if they're not directly in this district, I mean, technically this is Maryland, and friends don't like Friends Maryland, but you know, Marriott's just up there. I mean, name a major. I mean, AOL was here, or is, I don't know if they're still here.
Capital One, right? The HQ.
Yeah, Capital. Well, they're technically right over the border in
Which is
Tyson's
that,
Corner.
which is what? Is it the 10th? Yeah.
Yeah, David Conlon.
Yes, yes. Oh, the
My
11th. Yeah, the 11th.
the first joke I was able to make with this campaign and loved it was the fact that when I set up the campaign bank account, I went with a small local bank, Capital One. And like and then also, I mean, Navy Fed, technically they're in Vienna, but they're everyone is, again, I don't want to sound you know, it's very, you know, northern. It really is kind of the center of the country. You've got all the benefits of like the DC type area, but you don't have the problems of DC. You don't have the traffic. You don't have a lot of the crime. Now it's getting a little worse here, but I you can walk the streets of Arlington and Alexandria and feel safe. There are some places in DC that aren't. So I think it's unique. This feels like a overused word. It's a unique melting pot of America. Also, one fact that I think is often overlooked: we have an incredibly high immigrant population, which is awesome. I was speaking on another podcast recently about how I think a big part of that is also we have a lot of new ideas. I was talking about how immigration brings a lot of other perspectives into daily life, and you know, I think we also are kind of a case study of like the strength of immigration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So here's something that sort of has always struck me as interesting, and maybe you can help me think through it. So all these establishment companies, you know, the war machine and so on, if you want to call it that, and yet the district is very blue, right? What would expect it? Like if you go to like San Diego, for example, which is very heavy military and all that, it's very red. How come, in spite of all that, how come it's so blue?
So again, I don't hide this, but it's I came up on I spent a portion of my career in Republican politics. And one of the things that I was told early on in my career was around election day, you know, just kind of new to Virginia and things. And we were getting ready to watch the results come in, and I was told by a longtime Virginia political guy, and he was saying on election day, in particular presidentials, everyone thinks, right, when Virginia votes start coming in, that Commonwealth of Virginia is going to go red, because pretty much south of Nova is red beyond Richmond and maybe Charlottesville.
Right. I
But
mean, it's very red if you look at just the surface area. You're right. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's geographic. We're very, you know, not Democrat, and it's everyone thinks, oh, Virginia, and then Northern Virginia, you know, Fairfax County starts dropping,
That's it.
bringing in their polls, and the hopes of a Republican win sink like an anvil because Nova comes in. I think it's I don't want to say. I think because, especially recently, with just how polarized things have become, I mean, that's a big reason. Like, I was done with the Republican. I couldn't. I was like, these are not people who represent our values. for the majority of it. I'm much more of the Mitt Romney world, as opposed to the whatever there is in that, whatever there is in there now.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And I think number one, with the, like you said, the high income levels, we've got, Arlington County's got its problems and Alexandria, but they're much better. With the situation with regards to like local government, yeah, it may have problems, but compared to the other parts of the country,
No,
we're
I
fine.
agree.
And
Right. I mean, there is dialogue, and it's not like people are not
yeah,
talking. Yeah.
and I think a lot of it goes down to you've got people are super well informed
Mm.
and they want things to be better. And they also see the impact of it. My cousin, who's a lawyer out in Seattle, he said, he was like, a big reason why you came up and grew up with a Republican is because, in rural areas of this country are predominantly Republican, is because they don't see the impact of the government really. When you're in the middle, you don't see it. You don't see the local services. You don't see the day-to-day. I think here we see the impact of government in our everyday life. And I think that really lends itself to,
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So you sort of firsthand see that government is not that caricature that's painted as. Yeah. That there is. Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't think of it that way.
Also don't want to, say that that isn't without its flaws and isn't it
Of course.
independent.
Of course.
The biggest thing Mr. Byer has going for him is the fact that he's got the Democrat after his name. And
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I think it's an interesting area. Love it. But it's a very like everyone really talks, oh, this district is truly unique.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what's interesting is, so you, as I was saying, you're running, trying to unseat Bayer, who has been, he's the incumbent, and he's running again for the sixth time, I believe, right? He's at 5 terms, I think.
Yep, he's been in since 2014.
2014, so that's 10 years. So that's 5 plus times 2. Yeah, so that's 5 terms, and this is his 6th. I think he's 70 plus. I mean, I don't want to get into any ageism and all that in terms of, he seems to be okay, right? He's got it together and all that. But what's interesting is this: he is very likely to win, and because he has a D, because it's blue, right? So people, when they go, I think maybe half of the folks, maybe more, don't even know his name. They don't know he's their representative, maybe as informed as we are. And I also live in McLean, just in the border, on the right, on the 8th as well. And to be honest with you, I did not know his name until about, I don't know, 6 years ago, when I decided to get involved. But other than that, I was, I'm a D, so I would just vote. Although this time I'm not gonna vote D. I just vote for, okay, Democrat, and all down the ballot, don't even know who is doing what and where they stand, which is, I think, is a huge flaw. And I think, so my question is this, or my surprise is the following: the guy is really well entrenched, and if you compared, I was looking at the money, his war chest, he's huge.
Oh,
Right. So why does he need all that money when he doesn't even need to do anything really? I just appear as a D, right? And he would win. But why does he need all that? Is it just to scare people off so they don't challenge him in the primary, or what?
well,
What do you think?
so first off, with regards to, campaigns, I spent a lot of time political fundraising, and I was bringing in the money. I was spent it, but never as much on the side. And one thing I have really come to realize, and I was told this, earlier on in my career with a guy, I was getting him ready to run for the U.S. House, and he said, Bentley, the best advice I can give to anyone running for Congress is to be rich. And that is, I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Okay. And, I brushed it off, and it has come up pretty plain and center now, because you can do a lot with your campaign without a bunch of money, but it will, if you're not careful, burn you out, because it is so much work, just like physical work, and then also just an emotional toll. on this. And with Don Beyer in particular on his money, he's not raising a ton right now because he doesn't need it. He's never had a true election in 2014.
And yet he has the $1.2 million war chest. And
Yeah, and
I wonder
also,
why. Yeah.
I was doing, I mean, and just to like, there's also no insight or transparency into that. I mean, I need to confirm if he's refunded them, but he's signed like in fossil fuels and like some other pretty environmental groups, but there are some fossil fuel companies that are on those lists that he's accepted money for. Now I need to check if he's refunded them because FEC.gov is, I appreciate what they're doing, but it needs love with regards to the data side. But like, that's the state of it. He doesn't need it, but if he wanted to, he could drop a, if I got, if myself or Mr. Kennedy got super popular, he could easily drop 500 grand on us. And
Yeah.
beyond that, he's the 10th richest member of like our elected representatives, he's the 10th richest. He's
Out of what? 435? What is it?
538.
538, right?
Yeah, with the Senate and the House.
So that's what is that? So it's like
Over 100 mil. He's
1%, top 1%, or 2%.
no, top point. It's either 0.01 or 0.001. I mean, he's got now. He divested a lot of his personal financial holdings in 2022 around March.
What does that mean to divest? What is it? What does it mean?
When you run for U.S. House or if you're an elected official, you have to report your financial holdings and what organizations you're belonging to. Now, I could get into the nuance of it. I have never seen such an attempt to hide and make it difficult to access that data. And what they're doing there is borderline criminal, in my opinion. But every stock trade you make, it's on there for me right now. I mean, and the sad thing is I know no one's looked at it because I put some like spicy and like comments in my forum and no one thought it was funny that I put like diamond hands under my AMC stock holdings and to the moon for GameStop or the little comment about some Bitcoin that I have. And but back to the point of I went through a lot of his holdings and figured out when he divested and kind of dumped a lot of stocks. And it was right around the last primary, the Democratic primary, when he had an actual challenger.
What was that? Was it 2022?
Yeah, and no, he still won.
No, I'm saying 2022. He had a challenger. Okay.
Yeah, in the primary, and she got some attention. I mean, that's the hard part. I think Virginia in particular. I never thought I would use Louisiana as an example. Especially when it comes to elections like that, in Louisiana, they say vote early, vote often. And,
yes, that's the classic.
It's one thing that I cannot stand about the way Virginia's election system is set up is that we have primaries in the middle of the summer and
in June, right?
Yeah, like no one votes in that time, and it gives no time for people to compete in primaries. And with Mr. Beyer, and especially in 2022, I think he dumped a lot of his stocks because it was going to look bad. Now he just holds municipal bonds for the most part. Is that it doesn't give any time for the candidates to even mount a challenge. Like if I wanted to go to the Democratic nomination, there was no time. I would have had to do all that by June, and if I failed, I would not be on the November ballot. And with Mr. Beyer's campaign, he dumped all of that money because he didn't want that to be used as an attack more. At least I think. I don't know the inside of it. So I think with things like that, and to the point of why this area also votes blue, I don't think Northern Virginia's really had a choice. One thing Louisiana does, which is awesome, they call it the jungle primary. Every candidate, doesn't matter your party, you're on the ballot in November. And if no one gets 50% plus one vote, you have a runoff, usually in December, about a month later or so. And the top two vote getters go to a battle in 2 months, if no one gets 50% plus one.
Yeah,
But doesn't
it's
matter
less
your
rigid,
party,
less, yeah.
everyone's on the same ballot.
Yeah, that's definitely better. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Louisiana, who knew how to get good? Like, it's one, you know, we don't have a lot down there that we
Yeah.
can, but yeah.
No, for sure, for sure. That's why you know, there's something to learn from everyone who's different from you, you know, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I do want to do a deep dive into your focus, which is campaign finance reform. There were a couple of articles written, or you were interviewed. I think you came up with some findings, and I wanted to talk about that. But before we go there, let's just take a step back. On your website, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna read it, right?
Okay.
So so that I don't mangle it. So you are a passionate, data-driven problem solver, right? And you're running for Congress, the 8th, and your mission is to bring technological innovation and transparency to the federal government, ensuring it works effectively for all citizens, not just a privileged few. Now, you and I have something in common, which is I'm a technology geek person, right? That's all I've done all my life is focused on AI, focused mainly on human language technology, and so on and so forth. And I've always wondered, why are we still using, if I may call it, I don't know, 18th century machinery for our politics? Right? This is ancient, right? Which makes, smuggles a lot of assumptions, or maintains a lot of assumption, which is, you know, the people can be represented, like a million people can be represented one person. That person will basically represent them, represent their interests. And they don't need to know much, really, because they are not educated. Back in the 18th century, 19th century, the population wasn't as literate and didn't have the information that it. So, and yet we maintain the same, I call it the same machinery, right? We have tweaked it here and there and so on, obviously, with some major upgrades, I would say, women's suffrage and civil rights and, and so forth. Those are, but the machinery itself, the electoral college, the representative for, and all of that, and then the emergence of the political parties early on, I think, and we maintain the political parties as if we need to have sort of these kinds of beasts out there. Anyway, so I want to talk at the high level, right?
Mhm.
You're interested in technology to help, because I think you also work, what's the name of the company that you work for?
Civic actions.
Right.
Yeah.
And its mission is along those lines, right? Which is to help the government use tech.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about your core mission and sort of the singular attributes that you bring to the campaign, to the table, which is your technological know-how and so forth, but not just technological know-how like me, but technological know-how in helping the government do its job. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So, like you said, kind of one of the biggest problems, one of the things like I've seen a lot in government is there is no more permanent solution than a temporary fix. And a
That's good.
lot, again, now
That's
this,
the CR in the budgeting, right?
yeah, it just, they just keep rolling with it. One project which I can't give the name of the client, but I can give some specifics on it. It is the government pays for it, but there was a website that I was helping out with, and they were running Drupal 7, which I am not a huge fan or personally of Drupal. I have my own qualms with it, but it is what runs the government. And Drupal 7, for those who aren't familiar, is in its teenage, I think it's almost in high school. It's definitely in its teenage years with regards to age. And when it comes to software releases, that is not good. I was at Drupal GovCon a few weeks ago and I actually got this nice little piece of swag, company called Hero Devs. It's a nice little like chamois that cleans your screens and whatnot. Hero Devs, their whole purpose is they're never run deprecated open source. Their whole purpose is to support Drupal 7 and old systems, because the government, pretty much in most cases, has really old, really antiquated releases of software, and no one's supporting it anymore. But there's not always the motivation to improve it or fix it. And kind of one of the things that I say to it almost every day in government, it's and I sometimes I'll just set up venting sessions with some coworkers to go and say, wow, we could fix so many problems, but they just can't upgrade. And I think one of the big reasons I'm running is because I realized it doesn't matter how there are a lot of great people who work for the different agencies. Like there are also a lot of bad people. There are a lot of people who are like leading and overseeing major technological aspects of the US government that are not qualified for what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, everyone there has the best interests of the people they're working for in heart. Like which is like in every industry. But the biggest challenge, like in particular with government, in my opinion, is leaders have no idea. You can't go and make major change without the horsepower from an elected official. An agency could go and do a lot, but they can't do it. They have to have some cover there. And I don't think a lot of our elected officials have that. They don't understand. They don't know what Agile is. If you tell them, what's the how many story points were in the last what is a sprint? They don't know. They don't know. They think that Microsoft Teams and Slack are pretty much the same thing, which, personally, whenever I with clients and things, and I shamelessly bill it, and no one's ever told me not to. If I have a Microsoft Teams meeting for a client, I always bill at least 15 minutes for emotional recovery after that Teams meeting.
Why not? That's real.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. No, that's interesting. So don't they understand that if you don't upgrade, you're opening yourself to all kinds of vulnerabilities, for example, just a basic thing like that,
So many. And again, you said that, and I want to, I and also my company are incredibly open source. When in doubt, we a company, and I'm shamelessly stealing this, I steal slang all the time for the campaign, is default to open. And again, Civic Actions, I give credit where credit is due. There are pretty much the only things they don't share publicly with the company are things that are impacting, it's like HR type things. Beyond that, bank statements, contract awards, all the challenges we're facing, we're open with it. We do everything in open Slack channels. Our sales team, when we were at Drupal GovCon, I think it was chief marketing officer or the head person of bringing in new clients. There was a smaller contracting company that I was talking to, and his eyes got as big as like dinner plates when he said, "Oh, you're trying to figure out how to contact the government and do that? Just reach out to me. We open source all this. All of our marketing pipelines and sales and materials, you can have them. We'll give them to you we don't charge for that." Which is, again, from a business perspective, that's a little like, what?
Like what? Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like what?
Yeah, we do that. We're like default to open, and we
even information you're talking
as long as it's not,
I understand.
Privileged, but how we're reaching out to some proposals and things we've submitted. Email sales@civicactions.com and ask for help. And it's when we say default to open, we mean it. And that's really something that
why are you guys defaulting to open? Walk me through that.
We found, again, our founder and CEO, named Henry Poole. He is, I like to think of him as like OG internet. He knows like everyone when it comes to like the founders of the internet. And our chief security officer, Ben, he was telling me the other day about how, when back in the internet days, we didn't have passwords. Before it was like known as the internet, they just trusted everyone. It was technically like zero trust because you didn't need a password. Why would we need a password?
Yeah.
And we figured out, and every company says that they're great, but one thing I've really found amazing about this place that I'm working, at least, is that I've seen the power of what happens when not just people on it, something directly, different perspectives. Everyone has a different perspective, a different lens that they see the world through. And they can, when you have those perspectives, it makes everyone stronger. When you can look at different viewpoints and hear and see how what you're talking about or your idea or whatever, how someone else or in another group might perceive that, it just
Yep.
you might change and improve, and it strengthens the underlying message. And
There are studies that show, like, concretely, scientifically, and so forth, that um, decision making, when done by bringing all kinds of points of view, is always more robust, yields something more robust, right? Because it just looks at, and the edge points and so forth, and it converges towards something that actually is real, is based in reality, not on assumptions or interests. And so I know, well, we'll come to that point, because that's an important point about democracy, right? The more inclusive it is, the stronger the society will be, the better the decisions, the fewer the huge blunders that we have made as a country we would make. But let's take a whole back step and ask the basic questions. Why are you running, in a nutshell? Because I gave you the mission, but tell
yeah.
me, like, if you were to be elected, let's say you were to win, right? How would you behave differently, let's say, than, say, Don Bayer and the current status quo? How would you, number one, and number two, how would you change things in your capacity as a congressman, with all the possibilities and limitations of that office?
Yeah. So I have not, I got out of politics many years ago. I left in a blaze of glory when I left the consulting world, and I have never been happier. I will never go back into that, like, politics as a business world again, ever. I will
What
rather
was that? What was that world?
20 March of 2022 is when I bounced back and forth for a few years, but that was officially when um, I was fired from that job because there were a few things, but basically the gist of it was I was the chief wait, oh gosh, director of operations, and I oversaw all the technical staff and a few other people as well. And the president of the company wanted me to basically have all of my technical staff be doers of all and experts of none. So he wanted and to connect them directly with clients. And I value people and their lives, and I was not going to expose my email delivery expert to a client who might send him an email at, like, send him a message at 3 a.m. saying, "Oh my gosh, the world's on fire. You have to do this right now. And you have to update this thing on my website, or you have to update this marketing copy." That's what account managers are for. And I'm very, very mama bear when it comes to people that work for me and people that I'm overseeing. And that didn't align with what they wanted. And, a little, oh wow, they let me go, but then 3 months later they had to do major layoffs, and then at the end of
Yep.
2022 the company shut down because they didn't have any money. Shocker when you, but
What did the company do? What was
they
the
were a subsidiary of another company, so they were like digital marketing and fundraising, and they were a subsidiary of a direct mail firm. So when you get those big letters asking for money, they were a subsidiary of that company,
Okay.
and that company's been going to. But again,
Okay, so you're saying that that world of working for a company that does things for campaigns and so on, that's the world you don't want to go back to.
oh yeah, absolutely, and I've still got a lot of friends on both
Yeah,
sides of the industry, and it's horrible.
yeah.
And so this past March, I was actually talking one of the friends, and I was just complaining about, wow, like, we've had so many, once in a generation events these past few years. And I was just very frustrated with that. It's not hard to fix a lot of these problems. It's really not. Like, we just have to have the political will to do it. Someone actually has to go in there and just fix it. Even if your fix isn't perfect, do something, anything. And again, I work from home, so I go and walk around the neighborhood and call friends and family. That's kind of my to remind myself to get out of the house. And I got super frustrated, and I was like, I kind of stopped. I was like, crap, there's no one doing it. Because I was also at the time, after that left, I took 9 months after I left politics before I got my job at Civic Actions, learned to sail, love it. I'd saved up some money to buy a sailboat. And I planned right now, I was expecting to get ready to do a circumnavigation leaving next spring. But after that, I was like, okay. And then that next day, I started researching it. And then that was mid-March. And then I started the process to qualify to run for Congress because I'm fed up with our leaders more interested in getting talking points or talking about an issue than actually doing something. And it really, again, one of the most powerful things someone can do, I think, for their like personal growth or mental like development is to run for office, because you have to define a lot of things when you do this. And it really made me look back at my life, and a big kind of trend is going through and fixing problems and finding weird solutions that are effective. That's really a big part of what I do at my day job. Is there's a weird thing going on, or we need a creative solution to this complex problem, and it's kind of something I've always done and enjoyed. And so I decided, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do this because there's, like you said, there's over 800,000 people in Northern Virginia, and there are other people who are much better qualified, I hope so, at least, than me, to run for office, but no one's doing it, and no one's talking about solutions. So for me, why I'm running, I want to push for real change and actually do something as opposed to talking about problems. Because the question I ask people is, what bill or legislative thing has this country done in the past 10 years that you're genuinely proud
Yeah,
of?
that's a
And the
good
fact that no one
point.
can answer it without thinking is a problem.
Well, even after they think, I don't think they can come up with anything real,
Yeah, it's
you know, which is shocking because it's not like we're out of problems, right? Problems keep on racking up. Now, let me ask you this. Now you have, let's say it's November, is it the 6th, right? 5th is the election. November 6th is we find out that, Bentley has won. And now he needs to prepare himself for January.
Yeah.
When is the swearing in? So January 2nd or 6th?
No,
Whatever.
it's second, I think, is when they certify. It's not January 20th, but it's a little later in January.
Okay. So
But
you take your
I've
pledge.
got about a month and a half to do.
Okay. And
Uh,
so what and let's say you're going to be interviewed for NPR and they ask you the basic question. So now that you are shockingly you are now in Congress, what do you want to do with your first 2 years?
yeah. Well, I've already planned November 6th, and probably 7th. Now, if I win, I might have to cut it short. But as Sony before, one of the things that especially at my current job, I've really seen the like true power of is taking care of yourself. And running for office is again, like I said earlier, it really is, it's an all-encompassing thing. So November 6th, there might be a few interviews and things, but I'm gonna go to the woods for about 2 days. I'm going to Dolly Sods in West Virginia.
Get yourself a cabin and just like, what the heck have I done?
I'm dipping out for like at least 48 hours. I am a huge advocate of the outdoors and love backpacking. And I am going to go to the woods and just take a hot minute to just recover. And again, that's where I really can just recharge. Let's say November 7th or 8th, when I get back, because
You're back, and then we want to talk to you.
yeah, win, lose, I
Bentley,
just,
what the heck? You won. What are
yeah, if
what are you
I
gonna do
do
that's different
that,
from Bayer, right?
so again, first things, I start putting a staff together. I'm a huge nerd, and I am a ringer at trivia nights from Northern Virginia. I love me some trivia nights, but I also, one of the reasons that I feel that I'm really frankly talented at figuring out and like picking up new skills and figuring out new industries and things is because I know what I don't know. And for me personally, like if I won and was elected, put together a staff and put together some of the best that I can find. And not, yes, there are a lot of great people on the Hill, but first things first, like one of the things I want to do is I think I will be live streaming, which I know the House Security Committee is going to have a fit, but I've already got some potential challenges for them. I'll be live streaming my office. So I will be hiring basically a stream manager. There will be a webcam in my office, also my like personal office with microphones that sometimes if it's, PII and stuff, turn those off. But I will have the most boring Twitch streams this country has ever seen. And people will be able to see the office. They will be able to see me sitting at my desk working or doing whatever. That will be happening. And if a lobbyist comes in and talk to me, they don't get the choice of turning off the audio.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So,
That's
so
one
it's,
of the
it's
things
like a reality show in essence, right?
yeah, and that's something that I just am a huge believer in. I'll be hiring. I feel that Agile is often mismanaged. Agile is sometimes kind of seen as a bad thing in software development because it's sometimes people it's not. I think when Agile is like truly properly implemented, it's wonderful. That's a lot of projects at our company we manage on Agile and via Agile, and that's how I'll be running my office. So when I'm putting together my staff, we will be running open. Any bill that my office puts forward will be on GitHub. And we will because bills are text, all they are. So if let's say you're a lobbyist, you're an interest group, you're another politician, whatever, you want to change the text of a bill that I'm putting forward, submit a pull request on GitHub, which for those of you that aren't, it's basically imagine you have a file on your computer and you want to change or save it, instead of like having V1, V2, V3 in the name, you use Git and you can save you save that version, but it's still the same file and you can revert back and see why it's a great system, but do that for bills. So if, an industry wants to do a pull request, they can do that and do that default to open, so that people can see why I'm doing that. And then have 2-week sprints. Okay, we are going to go focus on veterans issues. We're focusing on the environment. We're focusing on transparency. And then everyone in my office will have local issues. The legal people will have their issues. Constituent communications will have their things they deal with. If it's an issue from a constituent, for example, comes in, that gets put in our backlog. And those are the kind of things that, and then again, everyone focuses on something for, we have our epics that go for more than one sprint. And these are the kind of, I think, innovations, really not innovations, they're commonplace, but things that I think, at least personally, would really get stuff done, because it's just a bunch of I feel like Congress, and I saw a lot of our leaders, it's not very productive. And you're getting paid for a full-time job when you're elected to the U.S. House.
How much do they make? Like 200?
174. Well, I think they might have gotten a recent increase, but
yeah,
174.
Between 150 and 200. Okay.
Yeah. It's and then also a big problem that that also if I'm elected, one of the other things is I will not be allowing Microsoft products in my office. My staff will be using Macs. We will be having an automated.
Yeah, no, I'll vote for you just for that.
Staff is underpaid. Congressional staff is woefully underpaid.
Oh, are they? Okay. Yep.
Yeah, you can't, which I know a lot of them, it's their first job, your early 20s, but you can't, I feel that this is one of the most important jobs
You did
that
tell
our
me.
country has.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of people in the bill, how the hell, honestly, most of them are there not necessarily for the money, but because they want to actually improve this country.
Yeah.
And we need, like, you shouldn't have, I feel that when people are paid well, they don't have to worry about their rent. They don't have to worry about food when they can focus and that part of their life is taken care of.
Yeah.
Everything else comes into place. So I think for me personally, and if I'm going in, if I'm elected, putting together a quality team that can support me and help me get done and help me accomplish the things that I want to do, because I feel like if you don't have a strong team behind you, you're gonna burn out.
It's like everywhere else. If you have a great team, you can go.
Yes.
Everything is smooth, and you can do so many things. If you don't, right, you have all kinds of conflicts, and
Yeah.
so well. So this is interesting because I attended a debate. Let's call it a debate. Which was 30 minutes long, right? I don't know if it was.
Did that, right?
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago, where you and Dave Kennedy, who's the other independent running, the eighth, and then Don Beyer, and then the Republican, what's his name?
Torres.
Right. Is it Jerry? Jerry Torres or Terry? Jerry Torres. Anyway,
Yeah,
um, yeah. So, and so I attended that. But I don't know if the format didn't yield itself to that, but I did not hear the nutshell you just gave me, which is a lot more exciting than what I heard, right? Because what I hear now and I can visualize is something very different, and it's all about transparency, accountability, enabling the constituency to have an input into what you do, and putting their interest first above all else, right? And ensuring that you have the machinery, let's say, the software and the staff to do your job effectively, which is I think a fresh message that I would say, that's I didn't understand that. Maybe it's because of that format. I think it's just they were asking you questions, like they came in like ask you this question, whereas and I also didn't get the same. And I mean, none of the candidates sort of gave a nutshell answer to the question, why are you running, and why should I vote for you, right? At least it was scattered. And I think now I'm thinking back. I think you gave the elements there because you're talking about data driven and so forth. But this way of like communicating it, so this is exciting what you're saying, which leads me to this thought experiment I've been doing. So as I was saying, there is this is part of a series. I think this is the sixth one, and with everyone I have run this experiment, this thought experiment, and gotten all kinds of interesting answers. And so I want to do the same thing with you, but you are special in the sense that you are a technologist, and I'm a technologist. I'm coming from the technology angle about how we can basically have a 21st century,
Yeah.
political governing machine. So so here goes the experiment, right? So imagine that you are running on the following platform, the platform of I, Bentley Hensel, hereby pledge to vote on every single bill that comes in front of me in accordance to my constituency's desire, which is translated through, and we can come up with some machinery like, I don't know, an app or something. Somehow you have a representative sample of your constituency, enough so that the error rate is, or the error margin is like 2%, sample size and so on. So let's say you have, let's say you have 1,000 people who are representing Virginia, right? Every bill comes to their app. Let's just visualize it, right? And they say yay, nay, right? And with generative AI, it takes the bill and just distills it to a paragraph so they can understand it, right? Which can be done totally, right? As you know, right? And so that's sort of, let's just think of it in that way. The how is not important really, because that's going to help. What's going to help us is, okay, what kind of a candidate you become and what kind of a representative you become, if that's the case. So imagine bill comes in front of you, you are an avatar of the people, no more than that. It may be that people decide to to vote on a bill in a way that you don't want to vote, but you don't matter, right? They want you, for example, not to increase the Pentagon's budget by whatever. They say no,
Mhm.
but you think that it should be yes. But you're a machine, right? Now, the way so think of that in terms of, so the reaction I want from you is, number one, how would your campaigning change? Number one. Number two, what kind of skills do you think you would need to have to be an effective representative, an effective campaigner, and then once in office, pure avatar
Yeah.
of the people? What skills do you need to have to be an effective, if any, right? To be an effective representative. And then maybe a third one would be, okay, is this a good thing? Is
Yeah.
it a good thing if every single member was along those lines? And then, so let's start from
Yeah.
there.
So, taking the first part of that with, basically being a part of the constituency. Initially on a survey, I feel like a lot of people have thought, especially with regards to like the popular vote with the presidency. On its surface, it sounds great, but again, I'm going to use an example that's happened to me in the past 2 weeks. My data privacy and security stance and policy is very aggressive. And if implemented, some major, especially initially, some very major companies, potentially like AT&T and stuff, will go bankrupt, like fully shut down when they have a breach. And and if some companies in this country don't get serious, like, potentially like Lloyd's of London could potentially go under with the amount of like money that would be paid out and something for these things. And a very aggressive stance on that. But within the past 2 weeks, the problems have been mitigated effectively. Company was open with me about it. But I reported a potential like security breach and a data violation with a company that I work with a lot. Great piece of open source software, was amazing, but they had a breach. And I reported it, and they let me know, and I let them know. I was like, okay, I reported it within a couple hours. I had an email from the CEO saying this problem has been solved, and this was a Saturday afternoon. They took it very seriously, and I was looking again. I'm a huge data hoarder personally. I just crossed the 500 terabyte mark on my personal home lab, so.
That's crazy.
I didn't save the data, but I did catalog and see, okay, how's the scope of this thing? And it was big. Not a lot of, it was email. It wasn't anything super bad, but it was significant. And being run across, I had put my data privacy bill down, and I specifically set it up so that it doesn't matter. You are paying a data breach compensation, but this company, they are doing everything right. Like they've followed best practices. They've done what and it was a stupid mistake.
How does this fit with my
Well,
question?
but to the point of the bill, it's my perspective had changed. I had not, on its surface, and when I tell people about the data privacy bill, they love it. But there are these edge cases where companies are doing the right thing. They are being secure. And that wasn't accounted for in the bill. And had my bill just been passed as it is, there are things that would have been impacted. Or there's also another example is there's an episode of The West Wing where Josh Lyman, they're in the I think maybe Roosevelt room, but they're going to have all these binders on the tables, and it's all these studies, and there's a little intern there named Winnie, and they're like, oh, let's cut this program, and it was about municipal solid waste, and she was like, then she read off the facts about it, and a lot of bills and a lot of these issues that we're facing as a country are not just top level. They impact way more than you can digest into a paragraph. Now, so I think with regards to like voting direct and having a data privacy bill, no one would have thought if they would have gotten a 1 paragraph summary or not super educated on the issue. Heck, I'm very educated on data security, data privacy. Like that is something I'm very good at. And I hadn't even considered, a case. So when it comes to
You
like,
think the congressman is?
no, they're not. Our Congress is completely ineffective. And the fact
No,
that,
I'm saying is, let's compare it to the way it is today as opposed to the ideal. The way it is today is some congressman is going to say nay for whatever reason, probably because his party says that's what you should say, and then
yeah,
his constituency says yay, right? So that it's not about in my opinion, it's not about the edge cases or the complications. It's very blunt. It's a blunt instrument the way it is today. Whereas if you have, a whole, 1,000 people, you might get some the year or the name I over in the aggregate, perhaps. I mean,
yeah,
I just wanted to sort of just point that out, right? So
yeah.
that we can compare not against the idea, but against what we have today.
So
Yeah.
today, the problem, and again, I think it's lack of transparency. Right now, if let's just say you were today, the way our bills and structures set up, like you must be consistently communicating with your constituency. And it's communication is a two-way thing. It's not broadcasting is a one-way method of communication. We need to have conversations with the constituents. You need to listen
Yep.
to what people are saying, and that's not happening. Again,
So as a candidate, you would just sort of
like I said earlier, GitHub, put the bills on GitHub, live stream things.
but as
Go.
a first as a candidate, how would you go about convincing people if you are, let's say, an adherent of this
Yeah.
thing, right? How would you go about convincing people that this is better than what's happening today, which is representatives that are, beholden to the lobbyists, beholden to the caucus to which they belong, the political party. What would you go and say? How would you go about doing that? Would you? Because I ask, sort of a loaded question because right now we're facing Don Bayer's refusal to communicate, right?
I
In a concrete way, which is he doesn't want to get into a debate, and he's done with debates. He's like Trump, right? I don't want to do debates.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He right now, I would if I so let's say this happen. I'm changing my campaign right now, in the next 50 something days, and that will be how I'm handling it. Being the data nerd that I am, I would finish the project of indexing and archiving every single financial transaction of the United States House of Representatives for the past 10 years, show that on a graph, and then eat all of the committee meeting notes into AI and see what people are talking about, what people are personally trading, and
Wow.
I know what that's going to say. And I think that would send a pretty clear message that our elected officials are more interested in end of quarter earnings than they are of their Americans' lives. And
That's
for
very interesting. Tell me, because I don't want to eat your time of your Saturday too much. Tell me, because that's what you just said is very exciting as far as a project. Tell me, let's say you built the system, right? Now I maybe I'm a journalist or maybe a scholar or just a concerned citizen. I go in front of this thing and I can ask a question. What kind of a question would I ask and you said because you think that it's gonna reveal X, Y, and Z. Just give me something so that people sort of like, wow, so this is the kind of thing I'll find out.
well, it's you think when you're an elected official, it's a weird concept, but your boss, like if I'm elected, I don't have a boss. The president's not my boss. The speaker is not my boss. Party heads are not my boss. My boss is the people of Northern Virginia. There's no one else. Like that's and getting their input. I think if a constituent or whomever wanted to go and ask, Nova GPT, whatever
Yeah,
that can give
yeah.
all this insight, I think it, and assuming this also when the responses go, everyone's educated and knows all the nuances of the issues and
Sure.
all that. I think it would give a very surprising answer with regards to most Americans, at least I hope this, see, we agree on more than we disagree on. And
Sure.
I feel that our current elected officials are more focused. They're so non-creative and they have so few good or new ideas. They just keep going back to the old well of these issues. And they have these key things that they must keep as a debate topic because they've got nothing else. So I think
Yeah.
if we can go, I think if someone typed into this machine and got an answer, they would be really surprised about how many things, quote unquote, Republicans and Democrats can agree on. Because,
With that, if I ask it and say, did Don Buyer become richer or poorer or the same?
well, right, like I said, he divested from, he's got municipal stocks and bonds now. So,
But his worth, but that's part of his worth, isn't it? Even though,
yeah, he went in, in his, when he retired pretty much from Buyer Automotive but he did double his wealth. He did sell his auto dealership while he was in Congress, but
right.
he's doubled his wealth there. He's gonna be fine. Like, even if like the stock market bottomed out,
Like that, when we asked Nancy Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi has, because of her stock,
she loves her some insider trading. Nancy
right?
Pelosi loves.
I mean, that's a revelation to say, okay, another question is, well, how did she become? Because I think people confronted her and she said, well, this is capitalism. And you're like, well,
No, it's not.
there's the rule of law.
That's rigged. That's not capitalism. That
No,
is,
it's
it's
not
not the free
exactly right. It's
market.
not capitalism at all. And so let's say your machine is now revealing amazing things or just
Well,
shocking things, right? Because what I want to do is I want to think through, is it about information? Because okay, people have the information. And then the question then becomes, so what happens? Because the reason I ask you this is the following, very specifically, right? Like Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, they dumped all kinds of information that is extremely shocking about how the government just has been doing all kinds of illegal, outrageous, immoral things year in and year out, and it's out there. But
yeah,
the journalists they stay away from it because they have a career to protect, right? They don't want to cross the path of the powerful, right? So they toe the narrative because the narrative is very straightforward. The narrative is the United States is a force for good, right? And maybe we make mistakes here and there, but if you look at WikiLeaks and then Snowden's and all that, it's not that. It's the opposite. Is the narrative. The opposite narrative is the reality, right?
yep.
It is not, and so on. They instigate wars and they are behind coups and so forth. So my question to you is, so here we have a cache of information that is readily available for anyone who wants to look into it, and yet they don't, right? What's keeping them from doing that, and how would let's say what you do, and maybe when we get to an era when people have more courage or we have a different system, then all of a sudden all this starts to flow. But why
Question.
do you think that's the case? Why do you think that there is this staggeringly, shockingly, shocking timidity of folks to expose what is easily exposable?
Quick question on the data that you're talking about exposing. Are you talking about the financial interests of Congress?
Any data, right? For example,
Well,
yeah,
like
anything.
if we're talking about that in particular, and then there's others, but I'll get to your question. But just so that everyone's aware, like the financial trades of Congress, I am a senior data and DevOps engineer. I have worked on a project called GovAlly, which is GOVA11Y. You can look it up on GitHub. Been on pause, but that is to scan .gov and .mil and perform an accessibility scan of every single web page across the United States government. Pretty robust. So I've built a lot of that, and I'm very familiar with the different areas, and I know that CMS.gov has over 100,000 PDFs. The House Ethics Committee has the system that shows these financial trades. I can send you the link, and I have never seen such a blatant attempt at hiding and preventing people from using publicly accessible data. In my opinion, the House Financial Committee, like personal financial disclosure reports, are intentionally hidden and made incredibly difficult. They have an index, they are stored all in PDF, even though you enter it in a web form. And every PDF has a password layer on
Password.
top of it, so parsing is incredibly difficult. What they're doing there, and the data, technically it's out there, but it's not good data. It is intentionally hidden. So, people can't make decisions. I am, with my job, you can see some of the code on Pencil for Congress if it's not pushed, I'm pretty sure I can, if it's been in a repo. And So yes, like you have like oh gosh, there's a few companies out there like political stock trades. You can see the public data, but a lot of those are manually entered. They have APIs, but like the data is not there. The information to know what's going on in Congress in this country is not there. And so people making informed decisions, if I have trouble getting some of it, how in the heck is someone who does not do this professionally supposed to get it? And also, it's split. I mean, immigration data is a great example of how there's a lot of interesting, great official data out there, but it's split across 50 zillion systems. Acquisitions, like, go and try to find how someone's doing on a contract, what the contract bids proposals look like, look how much money has been paid out on this contract. You're going over multiple systems and that are built, the 1990s called them with their tech back. So Americans don't have insight into this. The data's there. We're producing it, and we are, and many agencies are under guidelines to share it, but they're not. And to your point of like, also insight, like with what WikiLeaks has exposed, I want to get rid of FOIA. I think FOIA is duplicitous because I want to do FOIA by default. Right now, I just submitted 2 FOIA requests on a personal thing because I'm a huge nerd. One of them was for IRS direct file, and the other one was for dsva.slack.com. That is the digital services for Veterans Affairs. Those are the people that manage va.gov. You can see the Slack link. It's public. It's in there, public Git repos. But
You've been listening to Humanity 8.0 with your host, Dr. Ahmed Bouzid, founder and CEO of Witlingo.